know, Chuck and I have had a lot of fun with some of the stuff we've done, and Chuck's done some cool stuff with the Design X meetups. And we were chatting. It's like, what do we want to do here? And I said, look, Chuck, just have fun, man. Let's have some little fun here. So without that ado, here's Chuck.
Thank you, Mati, and thank you, Amy, and thank you anybody who helped me with the setup, because I don't really do keynote presentations all that often. So this is kind of like a new foray for me. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody for staying until the end, and we're gonna talk about bad design today and how to avoid it, okay? So just a little bit of warning, some of these images that I'm going to be showing today are not suitable for children. So if you have children in the audience, I kind of recommend you take them into the back, or go put them in the boardroom back there where we usually have our Design X meetup. So just it's just to clarify, discretion is kind of a device for this presentation. Okay. So a little bit about me. My name is Chuck Chugamlang. Yes, I'm the guy with the funny last name. In fact, that is the domain of my website. It's funnylastname.com. So if you go to funnylastname.com, you can find me on my website. I'm 46 years old. I'm a designer, graphics, interactive, and animation designer for over 20 years now. I'm a graduate from Art Center College of Design. I mastered in illustration and fine arts minor, because at the time there was no major in interactive design, so I had to do the best I could so I can get more computer classes and more programming and more development. So I kind of traversed the whole Art Center curriculum a little bit, so I can get a little bit more computer related designing processes into my study. So I did that, and then I just started designing for over 20 years now. I've worked for a bunch of different startups and a bunch of ad agencies, and I've started my own, and I've failed, and I've succeeded. And it's been, I've done a lot of great things, and I've also done some pretty bad things. So, but that's okay, I keep trying. I mean, that's the nature of what we do here, right? So we just keep trying. Just like today, we keep trying, and this thing kind of worked. So, so what is bad design? Okay, does anybody know what bad design is? Can anybody tell me what bad design is? Or had any experience with bad design? Or anybody? Ugly, not working, yeah?
Well, good design is, if you have to explain good design, then it's not good design.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
Invisible, utterly, it's ineffective.
Ineffective, it doesn't, yes? Non-extensible. Anybody else?
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense, right? Okay, so we understand that bad design, what bad design is, right? But we also have experiences with good design, good products too, daily. Actually, sometimes so well designed that we don't even know that it's there. So good design is out there. It's only when the bad design happens when we decide, oh, this chair really hurts, or this is hurting my back, or why isn't this app working? It's like, oh my gosh. Things like that start happening, right? So it's only when we know it's bad design is when we can appreciate good design, is my opinion. So let's go look at some bad products. All right. So this is some of this. When Mati asked me to do a presentation about today, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a presentation about just design in general or about bad design. But after talking to him, I thought, oh, why not? Let's just look at some really bad stuff out there. And so this was some of the stuff I found while I was doing my own design research. So this is something called Juicero, and this is a $400 high-tech juicer, and it met its demise after an article revealed that the users could literally take one of these bags and squeeze their own juice out of it without using the damn machine. So, it kind of rendered this really expensive machine. They had a dissection of this machine, on the internet. All the hardware is all milled, CNC. It's really expensive. So it's a really beautiful and beautifully engineered machine, but it's kind of pointless if you can, and it's irrelevant if you can just squeeze your own juice out of the damn bags, right? So anyway, so Amazon Key. Who's ever heard of Amazon Key? All right, what happened to it? I think, personally, I think they're still trying to work at it, but in my opinion, it kind of failed. So Amazon Key is an in-home package delivery system. Like the old school method of leaving a key under the doormat is just too damn inconvenient for them. So, and often too anxiety inducing. So Amazon decided to unlock your door for you so they can deliver your package right in front of your door. So what happened was some researchers quickly found a security flaw that could let couriers back into your home without anyone, including the user, know. So yeah, that's not a good idea. So, oop, it's not a good idea. So anyway, Spontana. This app lets people rate your selfies using a scale of 1 to 10, or emojis ranging from sad face to heart faces. It also connects two users when they like each other's photo. Sound familiar? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Somebody else is already doing this. So it's just another My Too app, right? Me Too app, I'm sorry. So there's plenty of these kinds of apps out there. So this one kind of pointless. Anyway, this next one is my favorite too because I'm a big fan of Star Wars, but yeah. This is called Hush Me. This is a $189 human muzzle that you can wear out in public. Voluntarily. So it includes an app to mask your voice using customized sounds like Darth Vader and R2-D2. I mean, really? I don't know.
Cool.
I mean, it looks kind of cool, but I think, what's that one character from Batman? It kind of reminds me of that guy. So, yeah, there's also a plethora of bad packaging also, just so you know. So, brands can be just as susceptible to to bad design. So let's look at some of them. I don't even need to say anything about this. I mean, I don't want to drink urine out of a urinal. It's just not good. Yeah, no. This is called semen dip. Yeah, this is not. I mean, looks fresh. It says right there, fresh semen dip. So, yeah, not a good idea. It's just not appealing to me. Unless you're into that, I don't know. Anyway, this is called Super Sluts. Cheap, fast, and easy. I don't need to say anything more about this. I mean, it's just, yeah, no. But the next one is pretty good. It's only puke. It's just it's only puke. I don't know if I want to eat only puke. I mean, it might be good with salsa and but packaging is not the only thing that's susceptible to bad design. There's also a lot of bad logos out there too. So this next one I found was for a Chinese restaurant. I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, yeah, no. I think it's supposed to be like a pagoda or something. I don't know, but it wasn't look like the sunrise that. It's a sunrise, but not the kind of sunrise you want to see on a logo. No. Okay, this is also not good. This is for pediatric center. I don't know if I trust taking my kids to this pediatric center, nor do I trust going to this dental hygienist either. I know they put you down, but you don't know what happens between the time you're asleep and awake at the dental office, and I don't want to know. So, and this other logo, the next one, by the way, is for a Catholic church. So, yeah, I don't know if I trust my kid going to this Catholic school, to be honest. I mean, with all the stuff that's going on out there in the media. So I don't feel safe here, but maybe I'll feel safe at this other place, which is a daycare center. Maybe I'll feel safe at this place. No, I don't think so either. So it's not just the execution of the logo, but it's also its members. Okay, that was a bad joke. So yeah, there seems to be a plethora of penis logos out there, and I just don't know why. They're just kind of kind of everywhere. And it's not just penises either. It's things like that. And if it's not red, it's kind of burning. So it's just kind of bad. And so logo design is completely susceptible to bad design too, and so is bad signage, right? So this one's called Kids Exchange. Kids Exchange. Don't get it wrong. This next one's called Megaflix. So, yeah, it's called kerning and spacing. You should think about that when you're designing stuff, right? Also, there's a lot of bad at UX.
Chuck,
Yeah.
you use words people probably wouldn't know.
Which words? Kerning, spacing. Talk to me afterwards. I'll explain to you what that is. It's a design term. Sorry.
White space.
Yes. I love Microsoft, but not when they do stuff like this. That's just. I can't look at that. I'm going to go crazy. So this is Microsoft Word. I mean, I can't. I really, really simply can't. So if I want to go exercising, I want to start the bike, but I don't know where the button is. But it's kind of down here. But UI UX design doesn't just pertain to software. It pertains to user interfaces and user experiences. That's also hardware-driven stuff too. So, and it can be as complicated as the dashboard for your exercise bike, or it can be a switch. So I don't know how to turn on and off this furnace. So do I turn on the furnace, on off? If I turn it off, does it go into emergency mode? I'm not quite sure. So, yeah. So, interfaces can be troublesome too. So it's something to consider. So how do we avoid bad design? I think we have to understand what design is first, right? So here are some things to consider when we're designing. So design is a process. Design is a process, and most people take it for granted. Design is a way of thinking. It took me 24 years to discover that. And after I went to high school, I studied drafting design, and I loved it, and I wanted to study more design. So I went to design school, Art Center College of Design, studied illustration, which was more a well-rounded program, but it wasn't until I graduated from college did I discover that design is more than just an aesthetic. Design is not something you see and think. It's not just like a thing where you look at it and, oh, this is cool. Then design is not just the product itself either. You may like the way things look, but sometimes beautiful things don't often work, and it's not an experience or an event either. So don't mistake design for fashion or styling, okay? So what is design? So this is the basic principle of classic design processes, right? You're the designer, right? And then you go and you research your end user about what their needs are, and then you go ahead and you prototype, right? And if your prototype is accepted by your client or your end user, and then you start manufacturing, and hopefully you'll profit at the end of it. But most of the time, you end up failing because there was something missing. So here I am to help you fill that gap, right? Better design process. You've got a designer, right? You got your end user. Now you're doing something completely different. This is called design thinking process. And this has been revolutionizing the way we've been designing for the past few years. It's been started by a couple of Stanford professors that started a department at Stanford University called D-School, which later offshooted into another big company called IDEO. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but they've been revolutionizing this process for years, and it's made a significant impact on how we design. So, what is design thinking? Does anybody know what design thinking is? Amy does. Okay, but for some of you who don't know, so I'm gonna highlight design thinking because it's a process that I'm familiar with, okay? So we use design thinking to change our perspective where we would otherwise not see a problem or an opportunity through discovering human needs. Now, what do I mean by human needs? Does anybody know? Human needs. Not my needs, not my client needs, but human needs. addressing human needs, and this is crucial because when we're understanding the problem from the human point of view, we can develop more better usable products. Okay, so that's what design thinking is about. Now, my workshop, DesignX, runs a design thinking workshop. We meet here every second Monday of the month, and we talk about everything from design processes to design thinking to building teamworks, and to help you get your best product out to the market. And we work with a lot of different people and a lot of different agencies, and we are free to the public. And that's the most important, because my goal is to make sure that everybody puts the best product out to market and you are sustainable. That's my value, and that's why I keep doing it, because I love it. Okay? So what is design thinking? You can categorize design thinking this way. You empathize with your problem. You gain an empathetic understanding of how products or problems and how to try to resolve them, okay? You define the problem, you gather the information during the empathizing stage, and you try to make it useful. You ideate, you start generating ideas at the ideation stage. You prototype, you create a number of scaled down versions of the product or specific features so you can investigate the problems and solutions generated in the previous stages. Okay, I spelled empathize wrong, sorry. Then you go, then before, this is all done even before you, test. So testing becomes a really important part of, your process. You test, you discover problems with it, and then you go back at any point in the process and understanding where you went wrong. This way, there's a good way of checking your product of the success in the market. That's also, in my mind, is really critical to understand, because it prevents you from making a poor product to go into the market, okay? So let's look at classical design thinking again, okay? So classical design thinking talks about what is the right answer and who are we designing for. We talk a lot. More about talking than it is about anything else. It's about data. It's about events. It's evolutionary, and it's working with a team. Okay? So what is design thinking? Okay? It's not the right answer. It's what's the right question. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? It's not who we're designing for. It's not the client. It's who we're designing with. That's the human needs. Okay? It's not the data that's important. It's the stories. Remember, and have you ever heard the term paralysis by analysis? Too much data? We're developing stories here. We're not concerned about data. We're concerned about understanding what the problem is and what we're trying to solve. Okay? We're not about events. We're about experiences. We're not about being evolutionary. We're being about revolutionary. We're trying to change. We're trying to innovate. We're trying to get out of our team, of our space, and work with the outside, working with the people and understanding what their needs are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so a couple things to consider. These are some of the things that design thinking addresses. And here's some of the opportunities that are addressed in design thinking, okay? We talk about people. So when we talk about people, we talk about what's desirable from a human point of view, okay? And that's up here, desirability. Then we talk about business, right? And when we talk about business, we talk about whether or not the product is going to be viable in the market, right? We have to think about how our business is going to operate. How are we going to maintain? How are we going to be sustainable? Then we talk about technology. We talk about whether or not this product is going to be feasible to create. Are we considering new technology? Are we considering old technology? Are we using something that everybody's already building? Are we going to be another Me Too app? Or are we going to do something completely innovative using or developing new technology? It's up to you. It's something to consider, though. But If you only consider the desirability and the viability of a product in the market, then you haven't considered the feasibility, right? That means then they might not be able to get to market. Or on the other hand, if you just focus on the technology and the business, and you haven't considered the desirability, then your product might fail too, because nobody will want to buy it because it's ugly as F. You know what I mean? So you got to think about all that. And I think that's where the crossroads are for all these streams. In the middle here, I think it's where innovation happens. Okay? So I'm going to introduce something to you called the 10 principles of good design, just to give you an idea of what good design is. Okay? So who knows who this is? Who is he?
Used to work for Braun.
Yes. What's his name?
Dieter Rams.
That's right, Dieter Rams. He's a retired industrial designer and an academic. His consumer products company, Braun, which you said, introduced the world to functionalist industrial design. He also coined the 10 principles of good design. Let's go over them. The 10 principles of good design. Good design is innovative. The possibilities of progression, by any means, rests in how well we integrate all the services into the product, right? We talk about good design makes a product useful. The product has to be useful, otherwise nobody's going to use it. Good design is aesthetic. It has to look good, otherwise nobody wants to use it either. I'm not going to put something ugly on my table. Alexa looks great, right? So good design makes a product understandable. It has to be understood at the get-go. Apple puts a lot of time into their products because they know once they take it out of the box, people don't have to charge it. Have you noticed that? Apple products work right out of the box. It's so simple, It's understandable that we know that a good product will just work the minute you purchase it. And that's good design, in my opinion. Good design is unobtrusive. It doesn't tell you it's a design product. It shouldn't. It should be invisible. In fact, it should be only invisible. All you should be concerned about is how it functions, not the form, in my opinion. Although there are people who are designers who are really strict on being stylists also, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about being unobtrusive and being completely functional. Good design is honest, and be honest, about what you deliver in terms of your products and services. Good design is long-lasting. Well, that's kind of changed in the last few years. We're so wasteful. All our products made of plastics and metals. We don't even think about sustainability anymore. We have so much electronics out being in the trash that are just eating up landfills, and people are just taking their time trying to dissect each of those electronic components so each of those little minuscule pieces that go into a product are recyclable. That's, to me, it needs to be sustainable. Good design is thorough down to the last detail. You have to think from beginning to end in the terms of how you express it in the user experience. Okay. Good design is environmentally friendly. I already talked about that. Good design is as little design as possible. Don't over-design your product. It's just wasteful. It's a waste of time. All right. Good design is everywhere, right? It's only until we look at the bad products is when we appreciate the little things that design offers us, right? Let's look at some of them. This is Heinz ketchup. They develop a way of getting to the last drop of ketchup out of the bottle by the design of the bottle. What do you think was considered here? Does anybody know? Gravity. You can't pour the ketchup out of this bottle on the left, right? But you can out of this one because it's upside down.
How squeezable it is?
It's squeezable, yeah. Better engineered plastic bottle, right? That's technology, right? What about waste? What about waste? It's recyclable. What about, why did they flip it upside down so you can get to the last bit of ketchup at the end, right? So you don't waste. That's good design. Life Straw. This is a really helpful product because in regions of the world where potable water reserves are scarce, and this can make a really significant impact on how we can get water to remote places. And now it's helping a lot of people get access to clean water. You simply put it in your mouth and you stick it into dirty water and you sip. That's amazing. What does this solve? What does anybody know? What's the problem? Can't get to clean water? That's a people problem, right? What about the technology? Better portable filtering system inside, right? Business. Build a sustainable business on clean water. That's amazing. And inexpensive. Amazing. Okay, this one's one that really gets to my heart. Okay, this is on the left is called the Mayo electric prosthesis, and this retails for $42,000, right? I don't know about you, but like, there's a lot of places that could really, a lot of people could really use prosthetics, but then they're about to spend $42,000 on a new prosthetic arm, when you can pay $50 for a patent and 3D print your own. This is called the 3D Cyborg Beast, and it's printed, 3D printed. And it can be retrofitted, remodified for every specific user. Now, the cost of prosthetics are pretty high, right? That's the problem, that's the human problem. Technology, personal manufacturing and 3D printing, amazing technology. 3D and the business, this 3D printed costed only $50. I mean, the 3D license for this arm is through Creative Commons, and there is absolutely no commercial license to this patent at all. You can 3D print this today. It's amazing. And a portion also, not only that, but a portion of every kit sold goes to supporting enablingthefuture.org and the enabling community. So it's an amazing product, right? So we can do good design. We just have to work harder. Here's some of my tips for good design, okay? Be more human-centric. Let's talk about the problem. Okay, find a process for creative problem solving. Any process. There's lots of processes out there, but the ones that work are the ones that create great products, like design thinking, in my opinion. There's a lot of arguments about that, but I believe in it. Consider desirability, feasibility, and viability when you're designing a product, please. You know, create numerous solutions rather than one. I think we can solve a lot more problems if we just think harder. You don't need to be a designer to think like a designer. You don't have to go through art school like I did. You don't have to spend 20 years, you know, designing like I did. You can start now, and you can avoid bad designs. Because seriously, we don't have any excuse. Okay, thank you for having me. You need to contact me. You can check out my website at funnylastname.com. You can email me at annexstudio@gmail, or you can join my meetup at DesignX. And thank you so much for having me here. Anybody have any questions? I'll be around.
Chuck, let's trade. All right, questions for Chuck. Let's have some good ones. Amy, is that a question or yawn?
No, it's a question.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, right here. Your design meetup, is this something that where you're able to actually bring in designs of products and get critiques? Like,
Absolutely, yeah. What we do is we, just so you know, we had a meetup on Monday where we did, we had 4 participants participate in a 5-minute pitch, And what we do is we do a design assessment of them, and at the end of the event, we award prizes, and we judge them on the design criteria that I talked about. We offer a 4 to 5 month long workshop on design thinking and design processes. Not just design thinking and design processes, but we also do workshops on brand assessment. We also do like style guides. We train you how to build your own style guide. We also have a workshop coming up on team building. So we do a lot of like design process related like workshops for our meetup.
Great, and I just had one other. What would be your number one tip to if you have a budget, a very shoestring budget, trying to be scrappy startup, what is your number one tip to make sure that you're introducing these design thinking when there's so many other priorities that try and pull those resources away?
That's an easy answer. Find a designer. It's very easy. There's one sitting right next to you. Believe it or not, yeah, it's true. Find a designer to get-go, because they're the ones that are going to define your design language at the beginning. And without their knowledge on like how to execute well so your product is successful, I think it's invaluable in my opinion. Find a good designer, to join your team. Even if it's only on consulting basis, it doesn't matter. It's just better to have good design practices at the get-go than to find out later that something went wrong and there's something you hadn't considered because you didn't have a design researcher involved working with you at the beginning. Okay? Yes?
Suggest some places to find such a person. Mike,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let him wrap up first.
Go ahead.
Can you suggest a resource that would help one with finding those people or that person?
Oh yeah, there's lots of resources for finding designers. One, Art Center College of Design is a fantastic school. You can find great design students that work out of there from every type of practice, from environmental design to product design to industrial design. Graphic design, you name it. I mean, they have a plethora of resources, and they would be glad to work with you if you have a project. So, but
I guess my question: do you see if there's any industry or sector that's plagued by bad design that would really be apt to get good design worked on? Like any industry that's pretty bad.
I think every industry is plagued by bad design. I don't think anybody's susceptible to it. It's just that designers tend to be the last person to be considered when working on a project. I think like what I do with design thinking, my DesignX workshop is like I want to make sure that people understand that like the role of designers isn't just there to put a lipstick on a pig. We're there to legitimately do research and add value to a product or reconsider something that might potentially go wrong when it goes to the marketplace. I think Amy understands, and she touched upon that earlier too in her talk. It says like what hasn't been considered. It's like she talks a lot about the research and the design before the implementation, because once it's out there in the market, it's too late. You've already spent your capital, So, spend a little time on the research and on the design before it's too late, is my opinion.
And sometimes the capital you spent isn't money.
Absolutely.
Hours, man hours, time
Sometimes, yeah.
to market, all those things. So
Exactly.
I actually took the design thinking workshop with Chuck. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a startup, like the gentleman who is walking out right now. You have to go to them. You have to go. They're going to help you figure out how to be more successful. And they're great for all of us, not just designers, because it gives you a different way to frame your problems and look at your problems that you may not have thought of before. As they say, thinking outside of the box helps you sometimes to really define the core root problem that you're really trying to address. And as a technology guy, a lot of times I'm like, oh, this is freaking cool, let's just put this tech in here. But that may not be solving the problem, like Chuck pointed out. More questions. All right, Peter.
Usually when we're talking about design, we're talking about a product, a physical thing. What other kinds of things can be designed? Processes, services? Talk some more about that, if you will.
Yeah, everything can be designed. Remember, design is like, it's a process. It's not a physical execute. It's not physical. It's a process, and anything can be designed. Books can be designed. You know, a garden can be designed. You know, buildings have been designed for years. You know, gardens. Not yeah. A process can be designed too. I'm working with somebody right now who's working on a process for communicating and networking, and I'm designing with her a series of information graphics that like gives people the context on how to implement her process. And so information design is also key, isn't just as important in giving context to people.
So what do you call somebody who designs processes or services?
What do I call one?
What do you call somebody who does? I mean, if someone's an industrial designer, we think they design things.
Yeah.
If someone's an art designer, they design.
Oh.
So what do you call somebody who designs processes?
Well, sometimes those kind of people are sometimes called information designers, or sometimes they'll be called infographics designers. That's also another key term. It doesn't have to be graphics. It can also be architecture. Like an information architect is also a designer. They go in and they work on the architecture of like the process or service for software and development before the implementation of development happens. So software designers are also another like you know, area in design. UI UX design is also really important right now because we're in the software age of IoT, and so connectivity is really important in terms of information architecture between the devices. So there's a lot of areas where design can be implemented, where it can be improved too, because it's a relatively new landscape of technology that we're just getting into. So it's good to research.
Notice there's actually quite a bit of overlap with some of these conceptual concepts, from like the product to the design to the UX to the information architects and whatnot. So as I said, I mean, this workshop I really enjoyed a lot. I mean, as a software person, I was like, wow, this is cool, and you could really design non-physical stuff using the methodologies Chuck will go over. You could even design your day schedule based on this.
We design sales conversations.
Yes.
We design a sales process. There's also process engineers is the other phrase for a process designer. Process engineer, process analyst, they're the ones that are going to look to optimize your processes. And so it goes to how do you bring consciousness to the choices that are being made that create the results you have.
Also, I don't know if you know this, but there's a new field called medical visualization, which requires designers to develop UI/UX interfaces for the medical field, and that's a hot new design field. So if you're interested in that, I mean, I think there's USC offers a class or a extension course on that, I think. So yeah.
There's gobs of classes. Yeah. Once a university figures out we could get money by training people, they jump on it. Like, well, holy smokes. USC now has a data science master's, from the business school, because they're like, holy smokes, this is cool. But the Art Center, I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with the Art Center, they are like the design center here. I mean, we get people from China flying just out here to go to the Art Center. And the fact that someone like Chuck is willing to give his time to teach you, this is immensely valuable as a community. And I really want you to really appreciate what Chuck is doing here and what he's offering you guys and what Amy's offering you and what Miles is offering you here. This is immensely valuable. And that's why I keep telling people, what we're doing here is transformative of the connections. They're not selling you stuff. They're not selling you their services. They're helping you go to the next level. Who's got more questions to ask? Because Chuck's loaded with information.
Probably too much, anyway. I think I've just been staring at too much bad design today, trying to get to. I'm like I don't know which one is your favorite, but
Pagoda.
I'm just gonna leave that on there. By the way, that's not an A.
So, Chuck, have you ever seen a great logo from Fiverr?
From Fiverr, no.
Thank you.
Has anybody, Fiverr is, there's something to be said about stock. I mean, it's good for some things, but, I would not rely on it for any of your long-term investments. I mean, if you're going to hire a designer to do branding, don't go on Fiverr. Hire a professional who is a graduate from like a renowned school who understands the design language well enough to execute, logo and branding. Like I've done a lot of like branding and packaging. So I work with Amy actually on a project, and and it's important. You don't end up with a logo that looks like two people humping. In case you guys didn't know, that's what it was. That's what I see. I mean, you might not see it, but I saw that. But we talked a lot about the design language, and that's to make sure that that people don't get it the wrong context from your brand.
Talk a little bit about what makes a good logo.
What makes a good logo? Okay. Oh my God, that's hard.
That's a good question. What makes a good logo? A good logo is one that reflects your mission, vision, and your values. Does anybody know what those mean? Amy can explain what those are. But your mission is like you have to let people understand at the first glance what you do, right? Your vision is like where do you foresee yourself? It's like how do you perceive yourself, the company being, and your value is the promise that you make sure that your clients understand. It's like, for example, let's give a good example. McDonald's, the Golden Arch, right? It's like the tagline. I'm loving it. It's plain as simple as it can be. I'm loving it. I'm loving what? Oh, the food. So your mission, your vision, your value should really, really be well presented and packaged in a way where that it's marketable. So
and then we get into branding. We didn't get any marketing or branding talks, but the branding stuff. If you ever get into that, you're like, wow, what does this brand mean? And so someone showed me the American flag and said, what does that brand mean? And you're like, wow, American flag? And it means they're going to bomb the shit out of you if you kidnap Americans, So we'll see what happens with the Saudi Arabia thing. Well, I guess he was only a resident, so none of that stuff. Any more questions? All right.
All right. I just want to keep this up because I know it's just to make sure that we understand what we talk about. Okay.
Yes, as a UX designer transitioning from graphic design currently, do you have any advice or tips or any helpful nuggets of stuff?
User flow is really important, and that's part of the design process. I think design thinking process is really important when you have to consider the user interface. As a UI UX designer, you always should be concerned about how users interact with your product or your service or the application or the software. So a lot of things to consider when you're UI UX designing. So, but I would say start with the basics, like understand information architecture if you can. If you don't know about, if you haven't been trained in information architecture, I'd say maybe take a course in it or work with an engineer who understands software development and understand from the engineer's point of view, the user flow. So the better you can connect the end user and the better you can connect the end user, which is the desirability of what the users need on the interface, and connect that with the technology that's available and the business, I think you'll have a pretty good kick-ass UI UX design.
Now that said, it's like World IA Day will be coming up in February. So you want to kind of watch out for that. That's going to be all information architecture base, and I believe we have some friends of ours in the Northeast LA UX group who are helping to put that together, Mike. And I believe there's a Jay Filler who does UX will be also helping with that. Let's see, more questions. All right.
Questions.
This is so you get your last chance here to ask questions of Chuck. Miles is still in the audience, so is Amy. So if you guys come up with any last-minute questions, do feel free to pop it up. It's like, Miles, why don't you stand up? Amy, come on.
I do have more resources.
Okay. Big hand there for Chuck. Okay. Big hand for